Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is a recording of a presentation that I gave to the Academic Advancement Center at Colorado State University on April 23rd, 2025. For this one, I wanted to re-record it so that I could incorporate feedback and questions from staff during that presentation. So, hope you enjoy. I'm going to share my screen and let's do this. Okay, awesome. Okay, right on. So this is part of a student success tech series. This is on generative AI for program enhancement. And this could be for TRIO programs like ours, like the McNair Scholars Program, or it could be for other student success programs. So here are the topics that we're going to cover. First, we're going to make the case for generative AI in student access and success programs. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how streamlining and time saving, section 2, can kind of lead us on this path to creativity and fulfillment in section 3. Fun note here at the bottom, the image generated on the title slide was generated by AI using DALL-E. Generate a tech-themed image that is green and orange with no text and landscape high resolution. It did text anyway. We'll get more to like fun image generation and the kind of issues that GenAI currently has with that. We're also going to talk about responsible use of generative AI for student success staff. And we will add to this re-recording the environmental impact of generative AI based on the suggestion of a staff member here at the AAC. Thank you so much, Heather. So let's start with what is generative AI. It kind of goes back. This is like a little timeline thing. Okay, so starting from top and going down to the bottom. So AI started with this idea. What if we can teach machines to do some simple yet intelligent, kind of human-like things for us? That escalated. It's like, that's going well, but why don't we feed them increasing amounts of data so they get better and better over time? That transitioned into deep learning. Okay, now they have all this data and we're feeding in even more. Why don't we design these systems to be a little more efficient? They could think like our brains with neurons and synapses and make those connections and that sort of thing. All right, we're done with that. We crushed that. We killed it. How about large language models? Let's teach them language. And the original thought here was like, well, coding is hard and like it's not super accessible if everyone needs to be able to write code in order to use one of these systems. It's like, okay, well, then it makes a whole lot of sense to teach them language. And then generative AI, dear machines, using all we have taught you, generate new content. Mwah! And this is the part everyone gets pretty reasonably concerned about. So yeah, are we going to talk about those concerns? Are we going to talk about those issues? Oh yes, we're going to also talk about the benefits. Here's a fun analogy with babies. So babies and children. So I love this because we think about, when our children are very small, when they're infants, right? What are we doing? We're teaching these simple things and we're getting this kind of mimicry of very simple tasks, right? Responding to affection, smiling, we're putting good things in, we're getting good things out, right? They start to do simple tasks like rolling over, crawling, sitting. We're feeding increasing amounts of data, right? At first, we start and it's really simple stuff, right? We're kind of just saying simple things. And that's what baby talk is all about. It's about that level of communication. As time goes on, we speak to them more and more and more and more. There's more input, more input. They're able to absorb more input. They're starting to develop those increasing numbers of synapses, neurons, connections, right? And then what eventually happens is, right, like generative AI, eventually they're generating new content. What's the difference? Well, for us, like eventually we become truly creative. and we're generating original things. This is not what GenAI is doing, and we'll get to that. Yeah, making the case for use, right? We're creating, not replacing. So we want to face this fear that we're going to be replaced, or that maybe I'm combating the philosophy of replacement here. To me, generative AI is a potentially excellent tool for us to supplement what we're doing so that we have time and energy to be more creative and more fulfilled. Faster access to information, of course, enhance depth of our knowledge, right? So it's not just access to more information, it's access to more information in order for us to be able to do increased investigation and enhance our depth of knowledge. Reducing bias. Yeah, really. Like, we know that, and it's out there, right? That AI systems can be incredibly biased, that there are some very, very serious issues. Those things get headlines, and they should, right? But also, AI can be used to reduce bias. And I'm going to get to an example of that when we do the Claude demonstration shortly. Meaning and fulfillment. Think about what attracted you to this work. So in the original presentation, I had everyone pause, take a minute, really think about what attracted you to student success work. So if you're just watching this video, you might pause it for a minute and think about that. I'm sure you came to the conclusion that answering emails and doing boring administrative tasks was like why you're here, like that. I know that gets me motivated every day. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to like go through all my email. I can't wait to like enter things in various systems and make sure all the documentation is there and write super long emails. Yeah, you get it. Right. Like, I don't know. I wanted to be creative. I want to play around. I want to be innovative. I want to think about like what's the future of student success. So I don't know, this allows us to get creative, to play around a little bit, to do what we came here to do. So yeah, let's start with streamlining and time saving. And again, that's going to lead us to this path of creativity and fulfillment. So I'm going to do 2 demos, right? Remember, this is just a very rudimentary introduction to Gen AI and a couple of things that we could be doing. We want to keep this series going and include more and more resources and ideas. We're going to do 2 demos. Let's do one on contact notes. This is a gold mine of student data. We all take notes when we meet with students, right? And they're stored somewhere. Ours are stored in student access. And like, what happens to those notes? They like go into the void and we're like, never seen again, right? We want to take full advantage of these. What you're doing as retention specialists and advisors, you're making a vital contribution. Every time you take a note, and you enter it somewhere, that's a vital contribution to the body of knowledge in our field. We want to get some insight, summaries, and suggestions from that. And I'm going to show you how to do that in less than 5 minutes using Claude. Claude is a system that is very similar to ChatGPT with some added advantages that I'll talk about. So our second demo is going to be a custom ChatGPT for staff. This keeps us from digging through the OneDrive. It increases access and transparency to knowledge, to program-specific knowledge, to organization-specific knowledge, so that we can all be holders of that knowledge, right? We're not gatekeeping, right? We all can go very quickly kind of see, okay, well, how does this process work? How does that process work, right? As leaders, we want to make leaders. So on demo 1, these slides like this are just giving you the specific step-by-step instructions, okay? So this is just for reference, right? I'm not going to go over this slide because I'm going to show you how we do it. So here I'm going to do contact notes. I'm going to be using the system Claude, okay? So to find it, Claude.ai. Pretty simple. In fact, most of these are going to be that way. They're going to have the name .ai as the extension. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start in student access. And what I'm going to do is pull some data here, right? So I'm actually going to use the dynamic report generator so that I'm not showing any sensitive information. And honestly, this is the fastest, best way to do it. So we're going to go select students. I'm going to use a student, Aaron. Okay, so first name, click update count, very important there. So put in the student's first name, update count. As far as staff, I won't click this to not give any of those names, but I'm going to go with all, right? You could select a staff member of your choosing. Maybe it's just you. I'm the director, so I kind of want to look at everyone's notes over the last few months. That way, it's kind of my job to fill in those gaps. Report content. I just want to be sure here that I export this as a CSV. The Claude system likes CSVs. ChatGPT tends to like Excel. At least that's been my experience. Report fields. So here's how you're going to do this. You do want to be really careful. We're going to have contact and reason, right? If you're not using student access, you have your own system. We highly recommend student access if your program can afford it. It's an excellent system. It allows us to get those APRs done like snap, snap. It's amazing. But we want to be careful here, okay? So anytime you pull from whatever system you're using, we're going to have reason. No, I'm not going to put any names in here, okay? I'm going to do two things. I'm going to have the date of the contact in case I do want some kind of analysis over time. In this case, I won't be doing that, but you want the date so that it logs those entries as different. And then reason, that's our big text box on student access, right? So that text box where you enter the text of the meeting notes. I'm not doing anything else. No last name, none of that, okay? So run report. It's going to pop out a report, report.csv. And here's what I'm going to do. So I have over here prompts. Now this is for the presentation. It's called presentation prompts, but I actually have these ready in my OneDrive at all times. I can also just store them in whatever system I'm using so that it already has that prompt. I don't even need to go to the OneDrive and copy and paste. Okay, it has the prompt. It knows when I want a contact note summary request, I'm going to say do a contact note summary request. I can teach the system. I'll show you that when we do a custom ChatGPT, how that kind of works. I can teach the system that this is what I mean, right? When I say we're going to do a contact note summary request for the attached CSV. Okay, so here's my prompt though. I'll copy and paste it. That way you can kind of see what we're doing here. Although let's talk a little bit about it before I copy and paste because it'll be harder to read there. So what this first paragraph does is it tells the Claude system or whatever system I'm using what the goals and purpose are for TRIO in general and for our program, the McNair Scholars Program specifically. So it says, this is our mission, this is the purpose. When we talk about topics, these are the main considerations. So then it's going to tell the system attached is a CSV file that contains two columns. The reason column contains the notes and the date column gives the dates of the meetings. And I say, hey, I want you to do two things. I want you to summarize what we've discussed. And given the goals and purpose for the Scholars Program, are there any gaps in our conversation topics that we should address? Do you have any other suggestions? And then what I do is for each student individually, the only thing I'm going to customize other than just that copy paste, I'm going to say, hey, here's an important note. This student's going to be graduating in 1 month and already has secured a position and funding in a master's program, just to add that little bit of context. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go paste it over in Claude. And then what I'm going to do is just click the plus sign, upload file, find that report, click it, and let's roll. So Claude's pretty fast with tasks like this. Some tasks take longer than others. So here it's kind of like, okay, let's start with your summary. We've talked about academic and research progress, and you can see that Sometimes it's quite specific, which is nice. It's like, hey, there's going to be some research presented pretty soon at this conference. Graduate school journey, right? The program that Aaron got into, who gave those letters of rec, those kinds of things. Let's talk about Claude versus ChatGPT, because I've done this with both. And I found Claude to be far better. Claude is known to be better with ethics, bias, identities. And so while ChatGPT, when I ran it, had nothing like this, nothing like this was included whenever I did this in that system. And it's really nice because here I'm getting more context about the student, right? I'm getting context about imposter syndrome. I'm getting, context about self-care, well-being, like what, has been discussed in terms of those personal things, right? We do holistic support provided, organize schedules, create outlines, provide feedback, right? What are the things that we have done, right? That we've done a good job at? And what are the gaps? I find this part to be so incredibly valuable. Now, I've run it for individual meetings. I've run this on, and maybe I'll show you all this in another video, but I've run this on our program overall, looking at all meetings, looking at all programming, what are the gaps? And I see, kind of similar things, right? So we need to do more on transition support. We need to do more, like, Aaron's in this master's program, right? But Aaron does want to get a PhD. So we need to be doing that preparation, right? We need to be preparing already for that transition. Research development timeline, right? So a more consistent, clear timeline in the transition from undergrad to grad regarding research, right? Professional identity development, networking. Networking is something that has come up that we're really going to have to focus on, because I noticed that, in running these analyses, I'm seeing a gap in networking everywhere. Mentorship transition, long-term goals, financial literacy, alumni collection, celebration and reflection. So I love this because it really covers a lot of bases. And again, as I look through, I go, oh, yeah. And this is the important part, right? And we're really going to see this when we do the ChatGPT demo, that it's so important for us to check and to use our own human knowledge to supplement what we're seeing, right? Does all of this actually make sense based on what I know about the student, based on what I know about our program, right? What of these is really the most important, right? Some of these are really important, right? And I know that here it's just kind of spitting out financial literacy, right? It cites nothing specific about our meetings, and financial literacy is something that Aaron has participated in. And I'm like, okay, maybe that one is, not something that we need to focus, on super heavily. So it says here, final meetings can focus on ensuring a smooth transition while maintaining a long-term vision, right? And then celebration and reflection. I love this, right? Dedicate time to celebrating our accomplishments and reflecting on our growth, which can provide closure and confidence. This is something that Claude does that ChatGPT doesn't, right? What a nice sentiment. So I love that one. Okay, so very quick. Again, typically I can do this and kind of read the summary and kind of think about what we need to talk about. I can usually do that. I can definitely do that in 5 minutes or less, sometimes a little bit less than that. Pretty quick to run. I found those super, super helpful. Okay. It's going to take just a second to get past the main slide. I wish when it presented, it would just go back, but it does not. Okay, so we did our demo on the contact notes using Claude, and now we want to go to the custom ChatGPT for staff. What's our motivation? Typing a question in ChatGPT is a lot faster than digging around in a OneDrive, and it absolutely is. So I have a custom ChatGPT for McNair staff configured. Always a work in progress. All of these should always be a work in progress and constantly audited. We'll talk a little more about that later. I have some sample questions to put into it as well to kind of show you how it works and what its limitations are. Okay, cool. So let's go over here. I am in ChatGPT. For this one, you can just go chatgpt.com. So you can see right here, see where it says plus, it's pretty small, okay? But this is CSU McNair Plus. We have a plus account. It's $20 per month and allows us to create custom ChatGPTs. So here I've got one for McNair Scholars in the works. That will be coming out by the end of summer. And this will be for McNair Scholars across the country. So keep an eye out for that. And then here is for staff. So clicking this one, you can kind of see how it works for staff. You have these little prompts, right? We can just kind of click some suggestions, right? So I created suggested prompts and you'll see that in the configuration, right? So we could do current trio low income level for a family unit size of 4. When I show you the configuration, you'll see that I tell it to pull from the specific site, right, that has that information. So here are some citations that it gives, right, for this as well, right? So this is the one that I tell it to pull from. It adds other citations. Okay, so going back over here. Now we're going to go to edit so I can show you kind of how the back end works. So when we configure this, right, obviously we're going to give it a name. We're going to set it up as being private or public. Right now I have no private information on here, so I have anyone with a link. That way that you folks who are not in the Academic Advancement Center, if you'd like to have a look at it and you want to play around with it, you can just let me know and I can give you access to that. So description, usually pretty short. Instructions, long, right? And I'm adding to these all the time. Here are the really key things in the instructions. Here's what you're doing when you create a custom ChatGPT and the purpose of creating it. It's so that you can upload your own knowledge and you can instruct ChatGPT on how to use that knowledge, right? And how to prioritize these sources. So in other words, here I have, it should prioritize official sources and document-based information before referencing any external content. I give it instructions on how I want the output to look. It should be structured, concise, and professional while maintaining clarity and ease of understanding. When necessary, you should ask for clarification so that you give us accurate answers. It says you can search the web, right? But prioritize official sources. Then I tell it where to find specific things. Here is our McNair website. Here's the National McNair website, a bio and image of Ronald McNair. And then I say, hey, when you're asked about campus partners, I'm going to need you to refer to the websites below. Okay, so CSU Asian American Cultural Center, Black African American Cultural Center, right? It gives all of those campus partners. That way, if I want programming, right, what programs are our campus centers offering right now, right? Are our campus partners offering right now? And it'll just put it out. Okay, in these months, there's going to be these programs. Pretty cool. I have it used inside higher ed when someone asks for higher education news. I ensure that when anyone mentions COE or Council for Opportunity in Education, that they use the official COE site. When asked about income levels, use that official page. And then again, some fun conversation starters, and then the knowledge. So here, all of the knowledge here is knowledge that I would be happy to make public to anyone. And I think that you should err on that as well. That anything that you put into any kind of out-of-the-box system, and again, we'll talk about this more later when we get into governance and that kind of thing, but just make sure it's things that you'd be okay with being public, or maybe they're already public. So what you see here are just like our requirements flyers, like our programming flyers, right? Obviously, we send those out in mass emails. Um, like some of our policy and procedures that I'd be happy to share with any of you all, right? Data and systems, faculty mentorship. We have our AAC travel policy. We're going to do a query on that in a second. And again, kind of see where ChatGPT can go wrong. Programming, annual evaluation process, again, policies, procedures, and I always put in our quarterly budget reports. These are just summaries, big ideas of kind of what's happening with our budget. And then capabilities, you get to choose. You don't have to give it access to everything. I give access to all capabilities. And then again, I'm just really careful to like tell it what it should use for different purposes. So let's play around with it. So going back, here we go. And let's ask some questions. Let's see what we got. Let's start with this one. This one's going to have an issue. So I love it because in the presentation yesterday, our admin who created the policy was there and like, wait, no, that's a mistake. There's a mistake there. Let's see if it makes the same mistake. Again, each time it generates, right, it's going to generate something new, right? It's not going to do it the same way every time. This is not a Google search. That's something that I find really fascinating. Outline the AAC individual student travel policy. So this came up whenever I had a travel meeting with a student, and I was like, wow, our travel process is really long, right? And that's great. Like, in other words, our policies are very thorough and created by our operations managers, admins. And so getting through it and like kind of finding things and sifting through it and understand it, like it does take a bit. So I'm like, okay, why don't we have that document here and then let's, use this to like outline what that process should be. So on a lot of this is like good, right? So meet 6 weeks prior to travel, complete the pre-travel form during that meeting, make sure you've got a TEM. Here are the other forms and agreements that you're going to need, how we pay for registration, how we get flight documentation, budgeting, travel folder management, right? This one, right? These are the people who worked on this for us, right? Operations manager and camp admin assistant. Post-travel meeting is scheduled during that. Here is a big issue. This was one that our admin found. So students must only use their assigned travel card. This one, it is pulling from the staff travel, right? Staff use a travel card. They don't actually have to use it, and students don't get a travel card. So this brings up, we're going to have a whole section on human AI collaboration, but I think this is great because in the moment, we can go, wait a minute, I can use my human knowledge. I know students don't have a travel card. I know that's not right. I can document that, and we'll talk about how we share information later, right? To share with others. Oh, hey, it's going to do this weird thing. Okay, so we need to talk about that. So here, right, then it goes down post-travel, right? And then how that kind of works, right? So again, like we got to be careful with those errors. Okay, what could we kind of prompt this to do anyway? We could say, why don't we try this? So this is totally on the fly, right? I'm just thinking of a prompting solution. What is the AAC individual student travel policy? Let's just try just that. Let's see if it prints just the policy or it makes that same error. Again, I won't do too much experimenting here because we do want to be careful of time. This is a long presentation. Okay, required documents. I just want to see how it does it differently, right? Okay, pre-travel. We might want to check this because it is actually giving that as a quote. So I wonder, I think we should go check the text actually, because it's bolding that. Interesting. Okay, we should check some of that. Interesting, interesting. All right, cool. But anyway, I basically did kind of the same thing, right? Just asking what is it as opposed to summarizing it. In fact, I kind of think I like the output more on what is it. Okay, anyway, that was fun. All right, so again, there are limitations. You want to check everything, and we're going to share any issues that we see with others. Okay, cool. So let's present. Oh, it's going to make me go back to the beginning, isn't it? Oh, no. Okay, cool. All of that, right? That streamlining, that time saving gets us to here. What's the purpose of streamlining and time saving, right? Streamlining. In other words, making things easier, right? Simplifying processes, right? Saving us some time. We want to open up that extra time, that extra brain power to lead us to greater creativity and fulfillment so that we get to really pursue the whole, like, how should I say this? We get to pursue the things we wanted to pursue when we got into this work in the first place. So I'm going to do a couple of little demos here. These are not like end all be all. It's just like a couple of ideas. Hey, look, what could this look like? So I'm going to look at the Perplexity search engine. It's like Google, but with enhanced citations and identity and bias consciousness. And how about fun Canva videos, right? So I say the next wave because um, image and video generation using AI is definitely in its infancy, but it can be a lot of fun. All right, so Perplexity search engine. Okay, so you want to increase your knowledge of a topic, but you know, Google isn't always the best option, right? Let's talk about those differences and then run some of these fun sample questions. Honestly, fun, like they're kind of deep, which is pretty cool. Where's Perplexity? I can't see because of the sharing button. All right, cool. Here's Perplexity. Again, these are typically, you can see here, perplexity.ai. That is typically how you will find most of these. Let's grab, oh, before we grab prompts, how about this? Perplexity, how do you differ from Google? Oh, you know what is so cool is that the last time we ran it, again, it's going to be different. It is not going to run the exact same thing every time. And that's kind of cool. So last time we ran it, it gave a table. Now you could, in this, if you liked the table, you would just type in, how do you differ from Google? Put it in a table. Cool. So how you differ? Conversational AI versus traditional search. In other words, we can talk to AI like conversationally. Information sourcing and real-time data. So this, I think, is very important, right? This difference here is kind of huge. Google is just crawling and indexing the web, right? Now it gives us a lot of information on rapidly changing topics, but the depth of the knowledge isn't always great. And again, it kind of has to do with a lot of ranking and that kind of thing. Now, what Perplexity is doing is combining pre-trained knowledge. I won't get too deep into what this means, but essentially, when we're dealing with something called a large language model, which we talked about at the very beginning, right? AI that knows real human language, right? Then we have to pre-train it on language so that it understands the language, right? Okay, and not just understand languages in like, I know English, you know English, I know Spanish, you know Spanish. It's more like understand language in the context of those topics. So how we speak, what our considerations are, that kind of thing. Oh, great example of that. How I said Claude talks about personal things and ChatGPT doesn't. It's because they're trained on different data. Pretty cool. Results format, presentation. The big thing here, really, sources, right? So Perplexity is very cool about sources. It's going to give those sources, and you get to kind of decide like what you like here, what you don't like here. So here's what I don't like here. What's the difference between ChatGPT and searching on Reddit, right? Reddit, Tech Target's pretty good. Lambda is pretty good, right? So it's pretty cool though, but you can see what parts of the answer because it does in-text citations. Oh, this comes from TechTarget. This comes from Reddit. So it kind of combined those two, right? And then you can go click on the source. So I don't know, it's pretty cool. You get to see what those sources are. Yeah. And again, just different training data. Okay. Presentation prompts. Oh, I forgot to do the ones for ChatGPT. Let's do one. Ooh. We did this one. Let's hop over to ChatGPT. I realize this is a bit of a diversion. This one's kind of fun. Let's hop over and do that one real quick, and then we will get back to Perplexity. This one is about a budget request. So for McNair program here, I do a budget report every quarter, and then staff have the ability to kind of make requests for expenditures. And what I'd like for them to do is I like for them to look at the budget report before they make a request so that it's not just kind of a ton of requests coming through and they're like super unreasonable. This is nice because it's like, hey, I'm thinking of making a request for non-participant office supplies, but based on that report, is it even likely to be approved? Like, is it worth the time to actually, make that request, that formal written request? And it says, okay, here's our summary. Here's our non-salary expenditures. Here's the breakdown. Here are things that we've already spent in non-participant support. Here are the main categories. And then it gives my assessment. It's like, hey, actually, we're a little concerned that we're not spending enough, right? So maybe we could spend some additional money. And it's like, hey, there were no concerns in the other category spending. The director encourages frugal, intentional use of funds, especially with potential carryover issues. Likelihood of approval, moderate to high. If it's clearly justified, it's likely to be approved. This is very accurate. I ran it with a bunch of different things. I really liked this aspect of it, and that's why I wanted to hop back to this question, even though I accidentally moved on. So I ran it on budget stuff multiple times. I think ChatGPT does particularly well at requests like these. So yeah, pretty cool. I like this. And the recommendations were good every time. The likelihood of approval for this kind of operational cost is pretty likely. It's moderate to high, depending on the value. All right, cool. Let's go back over to Perplexity. We already asked, how do you compare with Google? Why don't we do this one? What are the key components of a holistic approach to building a neuro-inclusive workplace? That's something that we had a presentation on recently. And so I think it's interesting for us to look at here and we can kind of compare. All right, let's give it a shot. Perplexity also has a paid version. It's also $20 a month. I don't think I've found a generative AI system like this that isn't $20 a month. Again, here, right, I like the fact that it pulls a lot of sources. Again, it's going to do this differently every time. It is fascinating, right? Here it's going to give us 20 sources. Some are going to be great. Some are going to be so-so, right? So here, looking at the sources, so yesterday when we ran it, it pulled like 30 sources. Today we run it, it pulls 20, right? Again, like we're not going to see that perfect consistency, right? This is generating new content, and it generates new content every day and absorbs new data every day. So every minute, actually it's continuous. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to go all statsy mathy on you. Okay. So I look through the sources. There are a couple of ways you can do this. You can look at the answer. You can read through it, kind of see what you think, share it with others, use it as a launching point. That to me is one of the greatest uses of GenAI, as a launching point for ideas and for that human collaboration. The other thing you do is go to your sources, look through them and say, what source do I like here? I noticed that we've got Oxford EDU, Okay, that's definitely more legitimate than Reddit, right? So, I mean, one hopes. So I'm going to click this. Okay, cool. This is like fairly comprehensive little paper. Okay, why don't I take this and let's share it out with folks on the team, right? Maybe we use the summary it gave as well. Sorry, it's got like the you're sharing your screen notification at the top, so I can't click things unless I move it. Okay, cool. So here, right, I could say, all right, well, why don't we like use this answer, okay, and then use the source that it gave us and maybe have like, a little short meeting, incorporate it into our regular weekly meeting, that kind of thing. All right, cool, cool. Let's go back to the presentation and we are presenting. And I am sure there's a way to present starting from where I was, but I don't know it. All right, demo 2, Canva. Let's say you're done with your admin work, student meetings of the day for done, you're feeling creative, you want to play around with something, you want to create something cool for students, you want to create something that's going to like pull them in, engage them, you want to see how stuff works. Okay, Canva. I chose Canva here, not because Canva is at the forefront of video and image generation. It isn't, but they are investing a lot into it. And we here at the Academic Advancement Center already have a paid Canva account. So to me, it was kind of like, oh, it's kind of a no-brainer to use Canva, right? Because we are already using it. All right, sweet. So here is what I created. Just a fun little thing, right? It's like, hey, here's your save the date for our summer research internship, right? Just kind of catchy, allows me to put it out there. Lots of fun, right? Cool. It took me, I think, maybe 3 to 4 minutes to create it. So fast, super fast, okay? So what I'm going to show you here, not all of this is AI, right? So a lot of it is just like templates, using Canva to create basic designs, and little, YouTube shorts, stuff like that. What is Gen AI? If you look at this image right here. So if you look at that image right there, I generated that using the magic feature down here at the bottom left, and put in let's grow together. And this is what it gave me. And I was like, oh, it's perfect. I love it. It takes it a few to generate images. So that's just going through the demo. And then I'm going to show you that little button. That way I make sure you've seen it before we move on. Doo doo doo. Here we go. This is really cool. This is what you're going to use right here. That little button right down there, you can kind of see it, right? Magic Media, it's purple. You're going to click that. You can generate images, graphics, or videos. So what I put in again was let's grow together. It gave me this image right here. I'm going to show, so I'm going to click around a little bit. See those suggested, like created by Magic Media? Those are really cool because you can click those and it will tell you what prompt created it. And that helps you kind of learn what prompts to do without just having to run a whole bunch. We'll get to that more when we talk about environmental impact. So I do one for the heart. Here we go. Cool. So there's this image here. And the prompt to create it was a red neon heart sign beaming against city lights in the rain. So you kind of see it's like fairly specific, but not too specific. And that's something you'll kind of learn about AI as you go through. That specificity is good, not too specific. Let's talk about the limitations of AI, human AI collaboration, and our CSU McNair governance policy. And TBH, I'm going to check the time real quick. Yep, we're doing okay. Let's do it. Limitations of AI. So big idea, AI is a great tool, but take special care to know the limitations of any AI technology before you use it. I actually added something in this one I forgot previously and wanted to make sure I specifically get to errors In other words, hallucinations or incorrect summaries or invented citations. So you can search hallucinations, AI hallucinations. I suggest that you do. The technical, this is KI specific, but not too specific. Um, the technical idea behind this is that these are models, right? So these are models of situations, right? That's what Gen AI is. It's a whole bunch of models, actually. And what can happen is um, it tries to overfit what you're saying. It tries to do, we can think of it this way, too good of a job in answering your question. And it's like, oh, they seem to want really specific stuff. Well, I better like create something. That could be what happened with ChatGPT. It was like, oh, it seems like they want really specific stuff. Okay, students have a travel card, just like out of nowhere. So we have to be really careful about that. Everyone's heard about ethics, bias, identity, consciousness, right? Bad in, bad out. These systems are only as good as their programming and only as good as the data they're trained on. And some systems are better than others. This one, zero human comprehension. Yeah, zero. They actually have no human comprehension. There's all this stuff out in the news. This AI system does a better job at reading comprehension than humans. No, it doesn't. It does a better job on a reading comprehension test. Why? Because it's a better test taker than you are. It's a better test taker than you are because it's better at pattern recognition. And that is not the same thing as understanding. It is only mimicking understanding. It's mimicking emotional intelligence and creativity. At times, really hilariously bad image generation. That's always fun. Many, many more. So I would suggest looking at the link in the presentation. It's not at all a bad list, a great starting point. And again, really for me, share with each other. We don't want to just know the limitations of any AI system. We want to know the limitations of any AI system for the way that we specifically are using it, right? You can also ask the system you're using. Usually does a pretty good job. All right, human and AI collaboration. Well, we know the limitations of AI, and frankly, we all know our own limitations. I hope. I know my own. I think about them all the time. Perhaps a well-defined partnership is best. So let's think about organizational intelligence. That's how we're going to start with this human AI collaboration thing. And the big idea is that our collective intelligence, the intelligence of our organization, can be increased through intentional, wise human AI collaboration. So collective intelligence, our ability to collaboratively adapt and problem solve, right? This a lot of times, and especially when we're thinking about TRIO and student success, we're thinking about diversity of identity and thought, social skills, and trust. Trust between one another so that we can do that collaboration, trust in the systems that we use to the point that we need to. Organizational intelligence is essentially like a function of actor intelligence in use, which is how much of your intelligence, how much of your ability are you actually bringing to the table? Actor composition, diversity, all about diversity, diversity of identity, diversity of thought, diversity in any way we can think of. Diversity is good. Organizational architecture, not just hierarchy, but also just kind of how we function, how we communicate operationally, that kind of thing. And organizational culture, right? So again, we're thinking about our social skills, right? Do we trust one another, right? What do we prioritize? That kind of thing. This link here, I love this paper. So this is a paper in Berkeley's California Management Review. It talks about the 6 principles of human AI collaboration. I love this paper. Love it. It is so cool. Highly recommend. Super digestible. Love it. So here are the principles they have: addition, relevance, substitution, diversity, collaboration, and explanation. Addition, like we're bringing new people in, we're increasing the intelligence of the people we have, right? We're adding to the system. Adding to the system increases organizational intelligence. If It's relevant, right? That type of intelligence matches the organization's needs. That's why we have job duty descriptions. That's why we have, when we put a job posting out there, right? We're actually trying to match a candidate to that because the type of intelligence that we want to bring in needs to match our needs, right? And again, we're thinking about intelligence, not as this like talent, you were born with it. No, we're talking about our ability to collaboratively adapt and problem solve. So we're talking about problem solving and adaptation. Substitution. Replacing humans with AI does not increase the intelligence of an organization. It merely increases efficiency. And it is my argument that with that greater efficiency, we don't want to remove people. What we want to do is increase intelligence, right? By bringing, right? Going back here, actor intelligence in use, bringing more of our intelligence to the table. Diversity. We want to increase diversity of identities, knowledge, skills, and experiences. That increases the intelligence of our organization. Collaboration, humans and AI, right? Explanation, know the how, know the what, know the things, act responsibly. We also have a tech and AI governance policy, going to be working with the other directors on this. The link is there. It's not in its infancy, but it's, I wouldn't say it's completely developed. To at least I'd like for other people to collaborate with me on it. So please do get in touch with me. Our principles are here in the slides. Check, share, and audit. This is something that I added based on feedback as well. Know the flaws in these systems. Be sure to check all output against your own knowledges and experiences, just like we did in the ChatGPT example. I also want you to share that experience, right? Share that out when you do some experimentation. If you see any issues, if you're having a particularly good experience, share with others, right? And let's audit. As leaders, we should be auditing our technologies regularly. We're going to assess cost, benefit, accuracy, relevancy, transparency, and so forth. And here, especially for our organization, I can say this is absolutely the case. Please do run, before you start using any Gen AI system, please run it by your director first, right? If you're at another organization, you might run it by leadership and just say, hey, I'm using this certain thing. Maybe let's get everyone on the same page for this particular technology. That's also going to help us and is a great transition to the environmental impact of AI. Again, a section added because one of our staff members, again, thank you, Heather, brought this up as a very important point. So I wanted to add a pretty, a good section on it, based on kind of what research is out there. A lot of this stuff is new, so it's a little bit challenging. I'm going to talk about the research and best practices for consumers, right? For the individual, for us, we, the small. Environmental impact, the research. What's our motivation to use AI responsibly? We need to be aware of the environmental impacts, both positive and negative, and be solutions focused. Let's start with the negative impacts. Let's talk about the research. Generative AI in general requires an incredible amount of computing power. This leads to, I say increased electricity and water usage. I'm talking a lot. Okay, a lot. Increased carbon emissions, a lot. The sources are here. There'll be a slide at the end that has all of them listed, so you can look them up and read those papers, or maybe, the abstracts. Manufacture and transportation of hardware. I found this source on it and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. But you don't see it mentioned a lot. But that's also going to be a negative impact, right? So these are huge negative impacts. This is 3 bullets on a slide, but let me tell you, like, the impacts are incredible. What are positive impacts? There are some positives, okay? Now, as it says in bold at the bottom, the negatives still far outweigh the positives. At least that is the best guess. The research on this is so new. It really is kind of hard to know anything, but right now the evidence strongly suggests that the negatives outweigh the positives by potentially quite a lot. There are, however, some potentially positive impacts should we choose to leverage these things correctly. optimization and efficiency algorithms. Particularly, we're thinking about like large scale, high pollution industries like the chemical industry. So one example here is like there were some ML optimization techniques in that industry used to increase efficiency. And it actually could be on a fairly high scale. It's just hard to say because, again, this research is very new. Quantization, so increasing numerical precision. I won't get into that too much. This could be useful for large-scale scientific pursuits, really anytime we're doing these computations. I won't get too much into the weeds on that. AI development in the automotive industry could actually increase traffic efficiency quite a bit and reduce carbon output. Yeah, let's talk solutions again, right? We want to be solutions focused, right? We don't want to just be like, this is a problem. This is a problem. Okay, well, let's talk solutions. Let's talk solutions. Okay, so we're going to talk solutions that just kind of a little guide on like what's in the research in terms of big picture solutions, right, for researchers and large scale industries. And then we're going to talk about some best practices that we can brainstorm for us. So use AI for environmental sustainability, right? Again, we talked about it, optimization, efficiency, R&D, those kinds of things. Measures to increase efficiency are being done, so trying to consolidate data centers and hardware. So one example of that, it's okay if we don't like know all the technicals, that's fine, but multiple virtual machines and one physical server, that's already being done for lots and lots of reasons. It saves them money, it also increases efficiency. Sharing data sets. There's a lot of research being conducted on energy efficiency. And it was interesting. I saw someone bring this up in this paper. There's a source note there at the bottom saying, like the more energy efficient they make this, though, the faster this is going to grow. So is this really going to help, right? So maybe it's a little bit better to focus on using AI for good. But anyway, it's an interesting argument. The need for regulations and comparative evaluation, right? Regulations aren't keeping up with growth, and it's the usual suspects, right? Powerful corporations, special interest groups, you've heard it. It's happening with AI as well. Comparative evaluation. Now, it's interesting because there are some regulatory bodies that are toying with the notion or have already started requiring a cost benefit analysis of AI. So let's talk about how maybe we could do that as well. Best practices for consumers. What can we do at the individual and small org level to decrease environmental impact? That should say impact, not in pace. Bad grace. All right. Here's kind of the issue. Look at these typos. Okay, you can tell I tried to put this together like pretty quickly with the revisions. All right, current research focuses on the operation of large companies and large scale industries. There really isn't much guidance at all for individual or small scale consumers. In fact, I couldn't find any. But let's brainstorm, right? We're smart, right? We're cool. We know our industry. Let's do some brainstorming. I have a couple of ideas here that I came up with. And then what I want to get from you is your ideas. And then let's bring all of those ideas together, add it to our policy, share the policy, right, to our other student success friends, and let's get this out there. Let's all like collaborate, right? So my ideas are this: plan ahead and run it once. So in this, right, I'm experimenting, I'm demoing, I'm showing you kind of things you saw with ChatGPT. I was like, oh, I got this idea. Why don't I try this? We don't want to do that all the time, okay? That's not me demonstrating to you how you should use it on a day-to-day. What you want to do is do it how I originally did it with Claude. I had a prompt together. It was very well thought out. I was very careful in constructing it. I knew what my plan was going to be. I knew what I wanted to ask. I'm not sitting there just like messing around all the time. I only do that when I need to do some experimentation. Ideally, that's done in groups with only one person doing it. We'll get to that in reducing redundancy, right? We don't want multiple people running the exact same query, right? Let's remove redundancy, right? If we're all on the same page, then we can work together so that we're not all running the same query or that we're not all experimenting with the same thing, but independently on separate computers using separate systems and just consuming more resources. Let's all get together, right? Experiment and play collaboratively. One computer, one system. We're all chilling in a room together. We're eating snacks. We're drinking coffee, and we're playing around with Canva. You feel me? So let me know your ideas. Let's add it to our policy. Let's share it out, right? Let's be collaborators. Here are the sources for the environmental impact section. Pretty sweet resource. Man, like these people are doing a lot of work on this, right? A lot of this is like brand new. You can see 2024, pretty much all of it. Thank you so very much. If you would like more information, if you have questions, if you want me to do a consultation, feedback, collaborations, I'm here for it, people. Please email me grace.ivins@colostate.edu. Thank you and have a lovely day, week, month, year, life.